I never thought I would be the guy who canceled his own wedding. But 3 days before I was supposed to say I do, I discovered what Jessica had been planning for our reception. A special surprise that would have made me the laughingstock of our entire wedding party. 200 guests, our families, my coworkers, all watching a humiliating video montage of my most embarrassing moments, secretly compiled for months. When I accidentally saw those text messages on her phone, I made a decision that shocked everyone, including myself. I canceled everything, disappeared, and left her to explain to everyone why there would be no wedding after all. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button if you believe some lines should never be crossed even as a joke. And subscribe if you want to hear how I rebuilt my life after this heartbreak. Let me start from the beginning so you understand how we got here. My name is Duane, and I am 32 years old working as a civil engineer in Boston. I have always been the practical, somewhat serious guy in any group, the one who plans ahead, thinks things through, and generally avoids the spotlight. My friends would describe me as reliable, maybe a little too cautious sometimes, but always genuine. I met Jessica 4 years ago at our mutual friend Tony's birthday party. She was immediately noticeable in any room, a kindergarten teacher with an infectious laugh and vibrant personality. Her blonde hair was always perfectly styled. Her blue eyes sparkled when she told a story, and she could command attention effortlessly. I still remember how she was the center of that party, telling animated stories about her classroom adventures that had everyone doubled over laughing. "You are way too serious," she said when Tony introduced us. "I bet you have not laughed once tonight, have you?" She was right, and somehow that direct challenge was refreshing. Unlike most people who might find my reserved nature boring, Jessica seemed intrigued by it. She spent most of that night trying to make me laugh, and eventually succeeded with an impression of Tony dancing that was spot on. Our relationship developed quickly after that. Jessica brought color and spontaneity to my structured world. Where I was careful, she was carefree. Where I overthought, she acted on impulse. It seemed like the perfect balance. She dragged me to karaoke bars despite my protests, convinced me to try surfing on our vacation, despite my fear of looking foolish, and generally pushed me outside my comfort zone in ways that ultimately made life more enjoyable. Our first major trip together was to Hawaii for our 1-year anniversary. We hiked volcanoes, tried local cuisine I would have normally avoided, and spent evenings watching the sunset on different beaches. On our last night there, Jessica convinced me to participate in a resort luau, and to my surprise, I actually enjoyed myself, even when she volunteered me for the on-stage hula lesson. "See," she said that night as we walked along the beach, "life is more fun when you do not take yourself so seriously all the time." And she was right. With Jessica, I laughed, more experienced more, and felt more alive. So when I proposed 18 months later, at an upscale restaurant downtown, it felt like the natural next step. I had arranged everything perfectly, spoken to her parents beforehand, and even had the waiter ready with champagne. Jessica cried happy tears, said yes, immediately, and we spent the evening dreaming about our future together. Looking back, there were signs I should have paid more attention to. Jessica had always loved practical jokes and pranks, but sometimes they went too far. She once replaced my presentation slides with embarrassing vacation photos right before a client meeting, laughing it off as just loosening you up when I barely caught the switch in time. At her family gatherings, I noticed how they all seemed to enjoy embarrassing each other, recording reactions to post on social media, often pushing until someone got genuinely upset. "It is just how we show love," Jessica explained, when I questioned why her brother seemed actually hurt after being tricked into eating extremely spicy food that left him coughing for 20 minutes. "We have thick skin in my family. You have to be able to take a joke." I accepted this explanation because I loved her joyful spirit and thought maybe my own family was just too reserved. Her family had a tradition of elaborate pranks at significant life events. Her sister had been surprised at her college graduation with an embarrassing childhood video played on the family television during her celebration dinner. Her cousin's wedding included a roast session that made the groom's family noticeably uncomfortable. But Jessica spoke of these moments as treasured family traditions. So who was I to judge? So I tried to adapt to be a good sport. When the jokes were aimed at me, to laugh along even when I felt uncomfortable. I believed that was the price of admission for being with someone as vivacious and exciting as Jessica. And for the most part, our relationship thrived. We moved in together, adopted a dog named Baxter, and began planning our wedding with enthusiasm. She was going to be my wife, my partner for life, and a few uncomfortable moments seemed like a small price to pay. Our wedding plans expanded quickly. What started as discussions about a modest ceremony with close friends and family evolved into a 200-guest affair at an upscale venue in Cape Cod. Jessica had always dreamed of a beach wedding, and I wanted to make her happy. The cost climbed steadily, eventually reaching $50,000, most of which came from my savings and some help from both our parents. It is a lot of money, for one day, I mentioned, as we reviewed the catering bill. But it is our day, Jessica replied, squeezing my hand. The most important day of our lives. Do not you want it to be memorable? Of course I did. So I agreed to the premium open bar, the extra floral arrangements, the designer dress that stretched our budget. I wanted Jessica to have her dream wedding, and my practical concerns seemed selfish in comparison to her excitement. About 2 months before the wedding, I began noticing strange interactions between Jessica and her maid of honor, Amanda. They had been best friends since college, and Amanda had always been a bit cold toward me. But now, I would walk into rooms and their whispered conversation would stop abruptly, replaced with barely suppressed giggles. When I asked what they were talking about, the answer was always just wedding stuff, or you would not understand. More concerning were the strange looks I received from Jessica's family during our final planning dinner. Her father would make odd comments like, "You are a good sport, Duane. Jessica really found the right guy to handle our family." Her mother patted my hand with something like sympathy in her eyes. Her brother Tyler gave me knowing looks, and once said, "Just remember to smile for the camera," at the reception man, which made everyone at the table laugh, except me. I brushed these incidents off as pre-wedding stress and inside jokes I was not privy to. Jessica had always had a tight-knit family with their own communication style. My focus was on finalizing the details, making payments to vendors, and ensuring our honeymoon plans were in order. We were set for 2 weeks in Italy, after the wedding, another significant expense I had saved for years to afford. 2 weeks before the wedding, Jessica became strangely protective of her phone. She had never been secretive before, often using my phone when hers was charging, or leaving hers unlocked on the coffee table. But suddenly she was taking her phone with her everywhere, even to the bathroom, and I noticed she had added a new password. "Why the sudden privacy?" I asked casually one evening. "Wedding surprises," she said with a wink. "I do not want you seeing anything that would ruin the day." That seemed reasonable. Surprises were part of weddings after all. But a nagging feeling persisted, some instinct telling me something was off. I ignored it, chalking it up to typical groom anxiety. Then came the moment that changed everything. 3 days before our wedding, Jessica was taking a shower while I was in our bedroom, packing for the weekend. Her phone chimed repeatedly on the nightstand, multiple texts coming in at once. Without really thinking about it, I glanced over and saw Amanda's name on the notification, along with a preview of the message, "Final edit done. He is going to die when he sees." I wish I could say I resisted the temptation to look, that I respected her privacy and trusted her completely. But something about that message, combined with the strange behavior of the past weeks, compelled me to pick up her phone. To my surprise, it unlocked immediately. Jessica must have disabled the password recently, perhaps finding it too inconvenient. The full message from Amanda read, "Final edit. Done. He is going to die when he sees this at the reception." Added the clips from New Year's when he got food poisoning. Perfect ending. Confused, I scrolled up through their conversation, my heart sinking with each message I read. Amanda got the footage from Tyler of Duane falling off the paddleboard. "He looks like a drowning giraffe." Jessica, "Perfect." Added after the karaoke disaster clip, Amanda. Your mom sent the video of him getting freaked out by that spider at the cabin. His scream sounds like a little girl. Jessica, he is going to be so embarrassed. But he will have to laugh it off in front of everyone. It is going to be epic." Further up in their conversation, I found the outline of their plan. Jessica and Amanda had been collecting embarrassing videos and photos of me for months. Falls, awkward, dancing, drunk moments, embarrassing stories. Even footage of me sleeping with my mouth open, apparently snoring loudly. They were compiling it all into a tribute video to be played at our reception, but it was clearly designed to humiliate rather than honor. The final message that truly broke my heart was Jessica's response to Amanda, asking if I might be upset. "He will just have to deal with it. Everyone gets roasted at family events. It is our tradition. Mom and Dad think it is hilarious they have been helping collect clips. Plus, once we are married, what can he do about it? He needs to lighten up anyway." As the shower water continued running, I sat on our bed phone in hand, feeling as though the floor had disappeared beneath me. This was not a loving surprise. This was a deliberate public humiliation, planned by the woman who was supposed to love me most in the world, with the full knowledge and support of her family. I put the phone down exactly where it had been, and walked out of our bedroom, my mind racing. I needed time to think, to process what I had discovered. So I grabbed my keys, left a note saying I had to run to the office for an emergency, and drove aimlessly around the city for hours. I did not confront Jessica that night. I returned home, pretended everything was normal, and told her I was staying late at work the next day to wrap up a project before our wedding. Instead, I went to my friend Mike's apartment, the one person I trusted completely to give me unbiased advice. She was planning to do what Mike asked incredulously, after I explained the situation. Play a video of my most embarrassing moments in front of everyone at our reception. I repeated, still struggling to believe it myself. She and her friends have been collecting clips for months. Her family is in on it too. Mike paced his living room, visibly angry on my behalf. "That is not a joke, Duane. That is cruel. And the fact that she dismissed your potential feelings about it. She said, 'Once we are married, what could I do about it?'" I added quietly. Mike stopped pacing and looked at me directly. "And what are you going to do about it?" "The wedding is in 3 days." That was the question I had been wrestling with since discovering the truth. Part of me wanted to confront Jessica, to see if there was some explanation that would make this all okay. But another part knew there was no explanation that could justify her actions or her attitude. As I sat in Mike's apartment, other moments from our relationship began to resurface. Jessica laughing at me, rather than with me when I made mistakes. Small comments undermining my confidence at family gatherings. The way she would sometimes share embarrassing stories about me to entertain her friends, even when I had asked her not to. What I had interpreted as playful teasing now seemed like a pattern of subtle disrespect. "I think I know what I need to do," I finally said. The next morning, I called the wedding coordinator and explained that we needed to cancel everything. The venue, the catering, the flowers, the DJ, all of it. The coordinator was shocked, asking if we wanted to postpone instead of cancel outright. I was firm. Cancel everything, even if it meant losing our deposits. Next, I drafted a simple email to all the guests. Due to unforeseen personal circumstances, Jessica and I regret to inform you that our wedding scheduled for this Saturday has been canceled. We apologize for any inconvenience this may cause, especially to those who have made travel arrangements. Thank you for your understanding during this difficult time. I sent it without consulting Jessica. Then I went to our apartment while she was at her final dress, fitting with her mother and bridesmaids. I packed essential clothes, my important documents, and a few personal items. I left my house key, her engagement ring, and a note on our kitchen counter, "Jessica. I saw the messages about the surprise video you planned for our reception. I know about the humiliating compilation you and Amanda have been working on with your family's help. A marriage should be built on mutual respect, not public humiliation for entertainment. Consider this, my response to your planned joke. I am canceling the wedding entirely. Sometimes the biggest punchline is the one nobody sees coming. Goodbye, Duane." I checked into a hotel across town, turned off my phone, and sat in numbing silence trying to process how my life had just completely derailed. Part of me wondered if I was overreacting, if I should have at least talked to her first. But the calculated nature of her plan, the weeks of deception, and most importantly, her casual dismissal of how I might feel about being humiliated on what should have been the happiest day of our lives, all confirmed I was making the right choice. Later that evening, I briefly turned on my phone to coordinate with Mike about retrieving more of my things from the apartment. As expected, there were dozens of missed calls and text messages from Jessica, her family, and even some of our friends. I ignored them all except for Mike arranging for him to pick up my remaining belongings the next day while Jessica was at her scheduled bachelorette party, which I assumed would now be a very different kind of gathering. I also called my parents, who were already in town for the wedding. I explained the situation as calmly as I could, though my voice broke several times during the conversation. To their credit, they supported my decision completely. My mother actually said she had always sensed something off about Jessica's sense of humor, but had kept quiet out of respect for my choice. The hardest part was not knowing how things were unfolding on Jessica's end. Was she devastated angry? Did she even understand why I had left? I fought the urge to call her to explain more fully to hear her side, but I knew any conversation would likely result in her minimizing her actions and maximizing my reaction. The note had said everything I needed to say. Over the next few days, I arranged for a new apartment, filed for a leave of absence from work, and began the painful process of disentangling our lives. The wedding may have been canceled, but the aftermath was just beginning. The consequences of my decision rippled outward immediately. Jessica's initial flood of messages ranged from confused, "What joke? What are you talking about?" to angry, "I cannot believe you would do this to me over something so stupid," to desperate, "Please call me. We can work this out. I love you." I read them all but responded to none. Through Mike, I learned that Jessica had gone to our apartment expecting to find me there, and had instead discovered my note and her ring. According to mutual friends, she had collapsed in tears, initially claiming complete ignorance about any video. When confronted with the evidence from her messages, her story changed to insisting it was meant to be a loving tribute with a few funny moments, not the humiliation I was describing. The reactions from our intended wedding guests were mixed. Some were simply confused by the abrupt cancellation email. Others, particularly those who had booked flights and hotels, were understandably frustrated. Jessica's family was furious with her father, reportedly threatening legal action for the deposits and expenses, though no lawsuit ever materialized. My own family rallied around me, helping me secure a new apartment and offering emotional support. A surprising number of friends took my side. Once the truth came out, with several confessing they had always thought Jessica's pranks went too far and crossed into cruelty. About a week after the canceled wedding, Jessica finally admitted to her plan when confronted by my sister, who had always been protective of me. Jessica apparently justified it as a family tradition, something everyone in her family experienced at major life events. She seemed genuinely shocked that I would consider it grounds for calling off our entire wedding and relationship. It was just going to be a 5-minute funny video, she reportedly told my sister. Everyone would have laughed, including Duane once he got over the initial embarrassment. He is being ridiculous and dramatic. This reaction only confirmed I had made the right choice. Jessica was unable or unwilling to understand how deeply hurtful and disrespectful her planned surprise would have been. In her mind, my feelings were secondary to the entertainment value of seeing me squirm in front of our guests. The financial fallout was significant. We lost nearly $15,000 in non-refundable deposits. I told Jessica she could keep the wedding gifts that had already arrived, mostly from her side of the family, as a small consolation for the public embarrassment of a canceled wedding. My own financial hit was substantial, but I considered it a small price to pay compared to the cost of a divorce later, which seemed inevitable, given this fundamental disconnect in how we viewed respect in a relationship. The most painful consequence came when Jessica turned to social media to control the narrative. She posted a carefully worded statement portraying herself as the blindsided victim of a groom who got cold feet and ran away without explanation. She conveniently left out any mention of the planned humiliation video, instead suggesting vaguely that I had issues with commitment that surfaced at the last minute. Several mutual friends who knew the truth tried to defend me in the comments, but Jessica deleted their responses. I chose not to engage in the public battle, believing that responding would only prolong the drama and my own pain. I deactivated my social media accounts temporarily and focused on rebuilding my life in private. Through all of this, Jessica never once acknowledged or apologized for the hurt her planned video would have caused. Even in her most conciliatory messages, she maintained that I had overreacted to what was just a harmless joke. This persistent inability to see my perspective only reinforced my decision to end our relationship. A month after what would have been our wedding day, Jessica asked to meet at a coffee shop halfway between our new apartments. Against the advice of friends and family, I agreed, feeling we needed proper closure. She arrived looking both angry and fragile, designer sunglasses hiding eyes I knew would be puffy from crying. We ordered our drinks and sat at a corner table, the tension between us almost tangible. I still do not understand how you could throw away everything we had over a stupid video, she began, removing her sunglasses to reveal reddened eyes. 4 years, Duane. 4 years gone because you cannot take a joke. I took a deep breath, determined to remain calm. It was not about the video itself, Jessica. It was about what it represented. You were willing to publicly humiliate me on what should have been one of the most significant days of our lives, and you did not think my feelings about it mattered. It was not humiliation. It was a fun tribute with some embarrassing moments mixed in. Everyone does it in my family. And? Did anyone in your family ever ask if I wanted to be part of that tradition? Did you consider that I might have different boundaries than you do? I asked quietly. You always knew I was a prankster. You knew my sense of humor when you proposed, she countered, defensive. There is a difference between pranks between the two of us and public humiliation in front of everyone we know. And when Amanda asked if I might be upset, you said, and I quote, "Once we are married, what can he do about it?" She flinched at having her words repeated back to her. That was just talk. I did not mean it like that. Then how did you mean it? Because from where I sit, it sounds like you expected marriage to trap me into accepting whatever treatment you decided was appropriate, regardless of my feelings. Jessica's expression shifted between anger and hurt. You could have talked to me about it instead of running away and humiliating me in front of everyone. Do you have any idea what it was like explaining to 200 people that there would be no wedding? My mother had to call everyone who did not check email. People thought someone had died. I am sorry for how it happened, I said sincerely. The way I handled it was reactive and probably not the most mature response, but finding those messages 3 days before our wedding, I was in shock. And honestly, would you have canceled the video if I had asked you to? Her hesitation before answering told me everything I needed to know. Maybe not canceled it entirely, she finally admitted, but we could have edited out the worst parts. We talked for almost 2 hours, circling the same points repeatedly. Jessica believed I had overreacted to a harmless family tradition. I maintained that respect and consideration for each other's feelings were non-negotiable in a marriage. By the end, it was clear we had reached an impasse based on fundamentally different values. I did love you, I told her as we prepared to leave. But love without respect is not enough. I did respect you, she insisted. Just not in the way you wanted. We parted with a formal agreement to sell our shared apartment and divide the proceeds. I declined her offer to return the engagement ring, telling her to sell it to recoup some of her financial losses from the wedding. It was the closest thing to an apology I could offer for the abrupt way I had ended things, though I remained convinced the ending itself was necessary. As I watched her walk away for the final time, I felt an unexpected sense of peace. The anger and hurt were still there, but alongside them was the certainty that I had narrowly avoided a lifetime of having my boundaries ignored and my feelings dismissed as oversensitivity. In the 2 years since that coffee shop conversation, my life has transformed in ways I never expected. 1 month after our meeting, I accepted a job offer in Seattle, wanting a fresh start in a city where casual encounters with Jessica or her friends would not be a constant concern. The move proved therapeutic. In Seattle, I found a supportive community through a local hiking group. No one knew me as the guy who canceled his wedding, allowing me to redefine myself on my own terms. I started seeing a therapist who helped me process the experience and recognize the patterns I had ignored in my relationship with Jessica. "You were right to identify her behavior as disrespect rather than humor," my therapist told me during one session. Humor that comes at someone else's expense, especially repeatedly, and after they have expressed discomfort, is not really humor at all. It is dominance disguised as playfulness. This insight helped me recognize other instances where I had allowed my boundaries to be violated not just by Jessica, but throughout my life. My desire to be accommodating, to not rock the boat, had often left me vulnerable to people who would take advantage of that tendency. I rebuilt my social circle, carefully prioritizing genuine connections over quantity. I took up mountain climbing, finding both physical challenge and metaphorical significance in the activity. Each summit represented another step in rebuilding my confidence and self-respect. I ran my first marathon 8 months after moving, a tangible demonstration of my renewed commitment to myself. Dating again was initially daunting. The first few attempts were awkward with me, either oversharing about my past or being so guarded that connection was impossible. But eventually I met Lauren, an architect who approached relationships with the same thoughtfulness and intentionality that I now valued. Our connection developed slowly, built on a foundation of mutual respect and clear communication about boundaries and expectations. "I would never want to make you the butt of a joke," she told me early in our relationship after I had shared a abbreviated version of my experience with Jessica. Laughing with someone is connection. Laughing at them is separation. With Lauren, I discovered what a truly supportive partnership could be. We celebrated each other's successes without competition, supported each other through challenges without judgment, and most importantly, respected each other's boundaries without question. For the first time, I understood that love should feel secure rather than anxious, affirming rather than undermining. The most surprising outcome of my canceled wedding was a profound sense of gratitude. Had I not discovered those messages, I would have married someone fundamentally incompatible with my values. I might have spent years trying to matter to someone who saw my dignity as secondary to her entertainment. Instead, I was given the opportunity, albeit painfully, to redirect my life toward authentic happiness and self-respect. I sometimes wonder what my life would have been like had I gone through with the wedding, had I never seen those messages, had I stood embarrassed but smiling as that video played at our reception. Would I have gradually lost myself entirely to Jessica's definition of acceptable treatment? Would resentment have slowly poisoned whatever love remained? Or would I have eventually found the courage to stand up for myself just much? Later, and with more complicated consequences, I will never know the answers to those questions, and I am at peace with that uncertainty. What I do know is that sometimes the hardest choices lead to the greatest growth. Sometimes walking away from what we thought we wanted opens the door to what we truly need. Sometimes the biggest act of self-love is simply saying, "No, this is not acceptable to me." And in that moment, though, it feels like an ending. We are actually writing the first line of a new and better story. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice to protect your self-respect or dignity? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in unexpected moments. Do not forget to share this video with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to set boundaries even when it is difficult. Thank you for listening, and remember, respecting yourself is never an overreaction.